I built a $10 million bakery empire from scratch. My daughter-in-law walked in, grabbed my keys, and told me I was no longer needed. Then she said the words I'll never forget. "You're old, you're tired, and frankly, you're in the way." It was a Friday evening, 5 minutes before closing. I was reaching for my handbag to head home early when Whitney, my son's wife, lunged across the counter and snatched the keys from my hand. The metal cracked in her grip. I still remember the sound. She looked at me, dead in the eye. "I'll be taking over the bakery and the house. You should go rest, Grandma." Rest. That's what they always say when they want to bury you alive. I stood there, stunned, in the back office. The same one Paul and I painted together in '98, back when the bakery was just a dream on a napkin. That office still smells like vanilla and yeast. My apron still hangs on the hook behind the door. But that day, I didn't feel like the owner. I felt like the hired help they forgot to fire. Whitney didn't wait for a response. She dropped the broken key on the desk and walked out like she'd already won. And maybe she thought she had. After all, she'd been laying the groundwork for months, showing up late, changing the logo, flirting with the younger vendors like it was her store. And my son? Matt just smiled and called her ambitious. But I wasn't angry yet. Not then. I was quiet, gutted. Because the truth is, betrayal from a stranger stings. Betrayal from family. It rewrites your entire past. I picked up the cracked keychain from the floor, the one Paul gave me when we opened the doors 26 years ago. A little cupcake charm, faded from time, with Parker's Bake Shop in his handwriting. That's when the shift happened. I didn't scream. I just stood up and walked out. Slower than usual, sure, but with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. Because what Whitney didn't know was that Paul and I had planned for snakes like her, and in less than 48 hours, I'd take back everything. It started at my own kitchen table, the one Paul built from reclaimed cypress after his second round of chemo. August 2021. Whitney had just married my son Matt in a sweet little ceremony under the oaks at Boone Hall. She wore ivory lace and cried real tears. I remember thinking, maybe I judged her too harshly. Back then, she called me Mom. Always with a hug. Always with that bright-eyed sparkle of someone who wanted to be part of something bigger. We were drinking sweet tea, and she leaned across the table, earnest and careful, like someone about to propose a deal she didn't want to mess up. "I know the bakery means the world to you," she said, "and I don't want to change that. I just want to help you run it smoother, give you time to finally rest." Rest. There's that word again. The pretty little cage they build before they shut the door. Matt nodded beside her, all trust and innocence. "She's got a business degree, Ma. She's good with systems, apps and analytics and whatnot." He said it like it was a gift, like I hadn't run that place through 4 recessions, 6 rent hikes, and the gluten-free trend. Still, I smiled. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to hand over something beautiful and have it cherished, not gutted. So I handed over the spare keys, the building code, and the digital login to the bakery app. Said it like a joke. "You mess anything up, I'll change the locks and pretend you never existed." We all laughed. Later that night, she sent me a text. "Thanks, Mom. I'll make you proud." I saved it. I still read it sometimes just to feel the knife twist slower. That same week, she changed the background photo on the bakery website. Quietly. It used to be Paul and me, hands dusted in flour, standing in front of the original storefront with our sleeves rolled up. Now, just an overhead shot of coffee and croissants. Pretty, polished, empty. That's how it starts. Not with fire, with edits. One thing, then another. The POS system login became hers. She created a new staff portal, changed email passwords, said it was best practice. I let it all happen, not because I trusted her, because I trusted Matt. And now, I don't know who I feel more betrayed by. Until last month, I opened the bakery nearly every morning. Not officially, of course. I was retired, but old habits cling tighter than family. I'd wake up before sunrise, slide my feet into those soft white kitchen shoes, and walk the block and a half from my bungalow to the shop. Charleston Street still sleeping. Porch lights flickering off one by one. I liked those quiet moments. Just me, the mist and the hum of something I built with my bare hands. The first thing I always did? Flick the switch in the walk-in cooler. Not for any real reason, just force of habit. Then I'd walk the bakery floor, same path every day. Front register, window displays, then back kitchen. Checking for dust, leaks, empty bins. The kind of work you only notice when it's not done right. It never occurred to me that I was watching my own phase out in slow motion. Whitney started coming in later. Then later still. Sometimes after opening. Sometimes not at all. And when she did show up, it was with iced coffee in one hand and some complaint in the other. These handwritten inventory sheets? So outdated. Why do we still use these old labels? This POS system's from the Stone Age. She said it all in that passive-aggressive lilt. The one people use when they're calling you obsolete without saying the word. One morning, I caught her tossing the binder into the back office trash, just casually, like it was junk mail. That binder held 26 years of notes, every price change, every holiday order, every supplier glitch logged by hand. I fished it out, didn't say a word, but something inside me itched after that, like the bakery was whispering, "Pay attention." Rosa noticed too. She's been with me 14 years, knows how to read dough and people. She didn't say anything out loud. Not then, just started taking quiet notes again, writing things down twice, backing up email orders, leaving sticky notes in places she knew Whitney wouldn't look. That's when I realized Whitney wasn't just lazy. She was laying a claim, bit by bit, and I'd been letting her. The final straw came on a Monday. A couple new, maybe tourists, asked if the young woman with the straight hair was the owner. I was 5 feet away. I smiled, handed them a fresh cherry scone and said nothing. But in my head, I made a promise. You want the title? You better pray you earned it. I didn't realize what she was doing until it was already done. First, it was the Instagram bio. I only checked it because Rosa's niece mentioned the bakery had started doing influencer giveaways. It used to say, family-owned Charleston legacy since 1998. Now it read, Whitney Parker Bennett, founder, owner, visionary, founder. I stared at that word until the screen blurred. I must have refreshed the page 10 times, like the truth might change if I caught it off guard. Then came the locks. One morning in February, I came in early to prep cinnamon rolls. My hands were already dusted in flour when I tried the rear door, and the key didn't fit. I stood there like a fool, apron on, hairnet crooked, knocking on my own damn door at 6:15 a.m. Whitney answered 20 minutes later, fake surprise in her voice. Oh, I forgot to mention, we had to change the locks after a vendor issue. Safety first, right? She never offered me the new key. I should have said something then, demanded my access. But I didn't, because Matt was out of town on business, and Rosa had already opened the front, and I told myself, pick your battles, be the bigger person. God, how many women my age have been eaten alive by that phrase? Next came the invoices. Rosa showed me the first one. Whitney had started listing herself as managing director on supplier forms. I wasn't even CC'd anymore. When Omar, our longtime flower delivery guy, asked if I was still involved, I laughed too hard, then too quietly. Of course I'm still involved, I told him. Why wouldn't I be? He didn't answer, just handed me the clipboard and made a note to confirm billing with new contact. That was March. By April, I wasn't on any of the emails. One afternoon, I overheard Whitney on the phone with a new distributor. She's not involved in daily operations anymore. She's more of a figurehead now. Figurehead. That's what you call someone too powerless to fight back. I didn't say a word, just walked to the back fridge and stared at the laminated prep list I'd written myself 10 years ago, still taped to the door, curling at the edges. Whitney walked in behind me, scrolling on her phone. Thinking about finally enjoying retirement? She asked, not looking up. I turned, just looked at her, and for the first time, she flinched. She was winning, but she didn't know I'd started watching. Matt invited me over for dinner, said they missed me. It was a Thursday night in late April. Their condo downtown still smelled like fresh paint and restoration hardware. Every corner curated, every cabinet organized by color. Whitney's touches, of course. The table was set for 3, cloth napkins, wine already poured. "Just wanted a little family time," Matt said, smiling like a boy trying to distract you from a broken vase behind his back. Whitney greeted me like nothing had happened, kissed my cheek, told me I looked so relaxed lately. Relaxed? I hadn't slept a full night since February. She ladled organic chicken stew into white ceramic bowls like she'd been feeding me for decades. "Don't stress, Mom," she said gently. "You've done enough. Let us carry the torch now." There it was. The handoff. The gentle shoving out disguised as gratitude. Matt reached for my hand. Warm, firm, practiced. "You deserve peace. Time to travel, maybe take that painting class you always talked about." Painting. They think I want to paint while they steal everything I built. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "I saw the new Instagram bio," I said softly. "Founder, owner, visionary." Whitney didn't flinch. "Oh, marketing thing. Branding experts say it performs better if the messaging is centralized. You know how it is." No, I didn't. Because I don't lie for a living. I took a sip of wine, let the silence linger just a second too long. "Well," I said, placing my napkin on my lap. "Thanks for dinner. I'll be heading out early tonight." Matt blinked. "You're not staying for dessert?" "No." I looked at Whitney. "I think I've had enough sugar for one evening." On the way home, my phone buzzed with a group text. "Thanks for dinner. Appreciate the talk." Whitney, the quotes around talk, said it all. She thought that was closure. The final soft dismissal. But what she didn't know, couldn't possibly imagine, was that the next morning I'd be unlocking a drawer in my home office that hadn't been touched in years. A drawer Paul told me to open only if I ever felt them circling. I'd laughed when he said it back then, but I wasn't laughing now. The drawer hadn't been opened in over 8 years. Second from the bottom, left side. Paul's old desk, the one with the brass handles, and a stuck track that always scraped like it was warning you. It was 6:12 a.m. The sky was still ink blue outside my kitchen window, and my tea hadn't steeped yet. But I didn't need caffeine. I needed answers. And I needed power. Paul called it the just-in-case file. He made it after his second stroke. Said it was in case Matt ever got foolish or greedy. Said it wasn't about distrust, just insurance. I remember laughing. Matt would never do that. Paul didn't laugh back. Inside the folder was a single sheet of paper, yellowed at the edges, thick and textured. The kind of paper that makes you sit up straighter, just touching it. At the top, Revocable Living Trust, the Parker family holding entity, dated 2016, 2 years before Paul passed. My name, Evelyn Parker, listed in clear, bold print as the primary trustee and 100% ownership holder of both the bakery and our shared real estate. Paul's signature, a notary stamp, a witness line with his lawyer's scribbled initials. And the best part? It superseded any informal partnership, verbal agreement, or LLC filed after his death. It was the legal equivalent of a nuke. I sat back in the chair, heart pounding. I wasn't just the founder. I wasn't just the figurehead. I was still, legally, financially, and irrefutably, the owner. Whitney had been stomping around my bakery with someone else's name on the deed. I could evict her with a signature and a postage stamp, but I wasn't going to rush. No, not yet. I was going to watch her, let her spin her web a little tighter. Let her commit to the theft so boldly there'd be no undoing it. Then I'd snap the trap shut. I looked at Paul's name, steady on the line next to mine. My throat caught. Even in death, he'd protected me better than my living son. I slipped the document back into its sleeve and laid it gently in the center of the desk, like it was loaded. Because it was, and now I was done mourning. The numbers used to make me proud. Now they made me sick. I pulled out the old fireproof box, the one under the guest bed. It still had Paul's handwriting on the label, household, do not shred inside. My so-called generosity, line by line, $38,000, down payment for Matt and Whitney's condo. I'd written that check in a moment of joy. First-time homeowners, big smiles. Whitney hugged me, called me a second mom, said I'd made her dream come true. I remember she cried. Tears. Now I wonder if they were real or just well-timed. $12,500. Their wedding. They wanted to get married at the Vineyard out in Greenville. Said they'd pay half, but somehow I ended up footing the bill for the caterer, the chairs, the twinkle lights, the vegan options for her college friends. You're investing in family, Matt said, grinning. Funny how investments start sounding like extortion once love goes sour. Then there was the loan. Refinishing the bakery floors, new tiling, fresh paint, $24,000. No interest, no contract, just a signed check and a warm, don't worry about it. They worried about it so little they never brought it up again. I sat on the floor with every bank statement and Venmo printout spread around me like a forensic crime scene. My own kindness, cataloged, time-stamped, and ready for court if need be. They wanted separate finances, except when rent was due, except when the business was slow, except when her birthday surprised Matt for the 5th year in a row. You know what hit hardest? There wasn't a single thank you note. Not one. I opened a shoebox of receipts, folded grocery store slips from when I stocked their fridge while Whitney had the flu, pharmacy runs, gas money, Target runs for the kids they swore they'd have any year now. I didn't give them money. I built their lives. And when they were ready to ascend, they kicked the scaffolding right out from under me. But now I had everything. Dates, amounts, proof. This wasn't family drama anymore. It was theft. Patterned, deliberate, entitled theft. I picked up my phone and called South State Bank. Calm, polite voice. I'll need printed statements for the following transactions. Yes, going back 4 years. No, I'm not disputing anything. I'm preparing something. The woman on the line hesitated. Preparing what, ma'am? Just the end of a very long mistake. The laptop glowed like a confession booth. I sat at the kitchen counter, tea gone cold beside me, and logged into the Regions Bank business portal. The same account I opened with Paul 22 years ago. Back then, it felt like a promise. Now, a noose. One I'd let them pull tighter every year I kept quiet. I stared at the dashboard. Account ending in 3,376. Operating account for the bakery. Still in my name. Still under my authority. Still mine. The balance stared back. $18, 423.12. Enough to cover payroll, rent, ingredients. All the essentials Whitney thought she controlled. I clicked the Actions tab. My fingers hovered. Am I really doing this? Then I heard her voice again from that dinner table. You've done enough. Time to rest. I clicked. Freeze account. Confirmation appeared instantly with a soft ding that felt louder than thunder. And then, nothing. No buzzing phone. No angry text. No confrontation. Because Whitney hadn't noticed. Not yet. The auto payments still trickled through. Rosa still handled cash from the register. Vendors still extended credit because of my name, not hers. Whitney was too busy playing CEO on Instagram to see the floor crumbling under her stilettos. But soon she'd try to run payroll, or cut a supplier check, or prove once again that she was in charge. And when that happened, the system wouldn't just deny her. It would humiliate her. I leaned back, staring at Paul's photo on the wall, him holding up a fresh loaf of sourdough like it was a newborn. I raised my cold teacup in his direction. To the real founder, I whispered. The clock was ticking. I walked into the public library with a flash drive in my coat pocket and war in my chest. It was drizzling outside, that sticky spring kind of rain that gets into your sleeves and your bones, the kind Whitney never liked because it messed with her hair. Good. The library still smelled like carpet and forgotten ambition. I slid into a computer station by the window, ignoring the chatty high schoolers 2 tables down. I didn't come for peace. I came to gather ammunition. Over the next 3 hours, I pieced it together like a puzzle no one thought I'd remember how to solve. First, the certified business license. Still under Evelyn Parker, sole proprietor, not Whitney Parker Bennett, not any variation of her hyphenated fairy tale. Then the EIN confirmation, employer identification number assigned back in, 97, never amended, no co-owners listed, no transfers filed. But the real dagger? I pulled the most recent state filings and found something Whitney never mentioned. She'd filed a new LLC under her own name, same address, same bakery name, nearly identical branding, Whitney's Bakery and Company. Like she thought she could clone my legacy and just walk away with it, I printed every document, labeled each one. Bank statements, title deeds, digital backups of her rebrand attempts. I even saved screenshots of her Instagram bio, the one that still called her the founder. Then, just for fun, I pulled the bakery's vehicle registration, still in my name. So she's been driving around Charleston in my van with my logo, picking up supplies on my insurance while calling me a liability. Good. I wanted the paper trail thick. I wanted it heavy. I wanted it to land on her like a gavel. I called LegalZoom, played dumb, asked what it would take to rebrand a business someone else already owned. The woman on the phone was chipper, probably half my age. Well, if you're not the legal owner, that's fraud, she said, like she was reading from a manual. Oh, I said softly, clicking print again. That's what I thought. I left the library with a folder so thick it barely fit in my bag. And when I got home, I didn't even take off my coat before emailing it all to my attorney. She wanted a business. She was about to get one, but not the one she imagined. I called Randall Fisk at 9:03 a.m. sharp. I hadn't spoken to him since Paul's funeral. Back then, he'd looked older than I remembered, but his handshake was still solid, his eyes still quick. Paul always said, if things ever go sideways, call Randy. Things had gone sideways, upside down, and inside out. He picked up on the second ring. Fisk. It's Evelyn, I said. Evelyn Parker. A pause. Then, it's about damn time. That caught me off guard. You knew? I didn't know. I suspected. Paul made me promise I'd be available if things started smelling off. He told me once, if my wife ever calls you without crying, take the case. I wasn't crying. I was done crying. I met him downtown at his office, an old brick building with frosted glass and books that looked too heavy for their shelves. He wore the same gold-rimmed glasses and smelled like cedar and courtrooms. I handed him the folder. He didn't say a word for 10 solid minutes, just read, lips tightening, head nodding slightly. When he reached the state filing Whitney submitted for her knockoff LLC, he let out a low whistle. She really thought she could get away with this. She still does. He looked up. Not anymore. I slid one more thing across the table. The cease and desist letter Whitney's lawyer sent me 2 days ago. Thinly veiled, full of fluff and posturing. She says I'm causing confusion in the market, Randall snorted. She's confused about who's in charge. He drafted the engagement letter on the spot. No hesitation, no delay. He was like a storm system that had been sitting offshore, just waiting to be activated. You're not going to like everything I'm going to do, he warned. I didn't like raising a woman who treats me like luggage, I replied. Go as hard as you need to. He smiled. You always were sharper than Paul gave you credit for. I signed the letter. He clicked his pen shut like a gun. She's going to feel this, Evelyn. In her inbox. In her wallet. In her sleep. That night, Whitney posted an Instagram reel about reclaiming your power as a female entrepreneur. Sunset filters, fake laughter, a motivational quote. She had no idea her countdown had already started. On May 15th, I walked into the post office wearing lipstick and gloves. Not because it was cold. Because when you send a message like this, you dress for the occasion. The letter had 3 pages. No fluff. Just facts. Cited dates. Account references. Legal language from Randall that read like silk covering a knife. Subject line, immediate termination of managerial access and notice of breach. Translation? Get out of my business, or I'll take you to court so fast your lashes won't have time to fall off. The man behind the USPS counter asked if I wanted signature confirmation. I said yes. He slid the label across the counter. I signed it like I was signing off on a decade of silence. The envelope was addressed to Matt and Whitney. Both names, printed neatly. I didn't want either of them pretending this was news. They'd had chances, more than they deserved. Inside, the letter gave them until June 1st to vacate the bakery, remove themselves from payroll, and transfer all system access back to me, voluntarily. Or they could enjoy a full audit, a fraud complaint, and a civil suit, with my name on it. My favorite line was at the bottom. This is your only courtesy notice. Further contact will come through court order. I walked out of that post office lighter. 2 hours later, Whitney responded. Not with a phone call, not with an apology, with a text. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I stared at the screen like it had grown mold. Not, let's talk, not we're sorry, not we misunderstood. Just pure, smug deflection, like I'd just overreacted to someone borrowing my sweater, not embezzling my business. I didn't reply. Instead, I slid the phone into a drawer next to Paul's pocket watch and the key she'd snapped in half. Let her feel the silence. Matt never responded at all, not even a let's cool off, not even a coward's emoji. That told me everything I needed to know. They weren't planning to back down. Good, because neither was I. She came in loud. It was a Friday, May 24th, right before the lunch rush. We'd just finished restocking the cold case, and Rosa was piping rosettes onto a red velvet layer cake. The account freeze had been in place for weeks, but Whitney, in her usual fog of arrogance, hadn't noticed. Auto payments, credit with vendors, and Rosa handling the register kept the ship floating until today. Today, she tried to run payroll, and the system told her, access denied. Then the door slammed open so hard it hit the wall. Whitney, hair done, nails fresh, that ridiculous designer tote on her arm. Like armor, she marched past customers like they were folding chairs, straight to the front counter where I was logging a cash drop. You froze the account? She snapped. The whole bakery went still, like the oven had turned off mid-bake. People turned. Phones stopped scrolling. Rosa didn't stop piping. I looked up slowly. Hello, Whitney? Her voice shot up a decibel. You can't do that. This is harassment. I kept my tone low. What I did was legal. What you did, however. She laughed, sharp and high. The kind of laugh you give when you're bluffing and starting to sweat. This is my business now, she hissed. Everyone here knows it. I run the place. I stepped out from behind the counter. Not fast, not angry, just calm. Do you have your name on the deed? I asked, quietly. She blinked. Do you have the business license, the tax ID, the trustee file, or any legal transfer document signed by me? She said nothing, but I watched her throat tighten, that flicker in her eyes. Not rage, recognition. Recognition that she'd just walked into a trap she thought she set for someone else. Behind her, a teenage girl waiting in line pulled out her phone, started recording. I turned to Rosa. Would you mind calling Omar to let him know deliveries will still be on schedule? Rosa wiped her hands, nodded once, and picked up the phone. Whitney's lip curled. You've turned them all against me. No, I said. You did that the moment you called me useless. She stood there for a moment longer, chest heaving, but no one moved. No one stepped in. No one offered her a way out. So she did what they always do when the power shifts. She stormed out, and as the door slammed behind her again, the bakery exhaled. People started talking. Someone clapped. Rosa finally smiled. We didn't say anything for a long minute. Then she said, well, that was fun, and we went back to work. I booked the fellowship hall at First Baptist under my name, Founders Day, Community Business Celebration. Not a lie, just not the whole truth. Pastor Glenn offered to open the event with prayer, said he was proud of Charleston's original sourdough queen. That made me smile. We printed 60 packets, each one stapled neatly, placed on a chair. Timeline, documents, trust declaration, screenshots, duplicate LLC filing. It was all there, page after page, dated and stamped and sealed. The invitation went out to church members, bakery staff, longtime customers, even Omar from deliveries. I made sure the invitation sounded casual, but this wasn't a party. It was a reckoning. June 3rd, 6 p.m. sharp. The church hall smelled like lemon polish and old hymns. Rosa helped set out the mini eclairs we baked that morning, a thank you to the people who'd stood by me without ever raising their voices. At 6:09, Whitney walked in. Late, of course, she wore white, the kind of white that says, "I'm innocent, I'm glowing, I'm untouchable." And she was smirking. That practiced, camera-ready expression, like she was here for an award, until she saw the packet on every chair, until she saw my name on the slideshow screen at the front of the hall, until Pastor Glenn said into the mic, "Before Evelyn speaks tonight, I just want to thank her, not just for her bread, but for never giving up what's hers." Her smirk twitched. I took the mic, didn't raise my voice, didn't cry, just spoke plain. I told the story of building the bakery with Paul, of handing over trust to family, of watching it get twisted into something cold and corporate, of locks changed, titles erased, lies posted like confetti. Then I opened the folder. I read out the trust. I showed the business license. I pointed to the duplicate LLC, and I let them read it all with their own eyes. I ended with this: if someone wants to start a business, they can. But they can't start one using someone else's name, legacy, or property, especially not mine. Whitney didn't say a word, didn't need to. She stood, snatched her packet, stormed out, again. This time, no one clapped. They didn't need to. The silence was louder. Pastor Glenn leaned toward me and whispered, "She thought this was a party." It was, I said, just not the kind she expected. People didn't leave. After Whitney stormed out, packets still in hand, the chairs stayed full. Some sat in stunned silence. Others flipped through the documents again, slower this time, like trying to solve a puzzle that had been in front of them for years. I stood at the front, grounded. My hands weren't shaking. I had Pastor Glenn on one side, Rosa on the other. And walking in right on cue, Randall Fisk, sharp suit and briefcase in hand, just like Paul used to wear when they'd go to small claims court for fun in their 20s. Randall nodded once, then stepped forward. "This is not a misunderstanding," he said, voice steady. "It's not a family spat. What happened here is a deliberate attempt to take legal and financial control of a business that was never relinquished." He handed me a sealed statement. I opened it slowly, let everyone watch my fingers unfold the weight. Inside, a signed letter from Randall's office declaring me the sole legal owner of Parker's Bakery and its assets, not up for negotiation, not open to interpretation. I placed it on the table next to Whitney's cease and desist. Two versions of the story, one backed by law, the other backed by lipstick and hashtags. Next to speak was Mr. Avery from the bank. He stepped forward, polite, quiet, the kind of man who says ma'am, even to women 40 years younger. He confirmed the account freeze, the authority behind it, the trust file on record, all matching my name. "You don't need a password if you built the vault," he said simply. A few staff members glanced around. One whispered, "She really had nothing?" Rosa turned. "Nothing but entitlement." That got a few murmurs. Not applause, just truth, finally spoken out loud. I looked around the room. "These last few months," I said, "have been the most humbling of my life. I've been lied to, erased, and insulted in ways I never thought my own family could do. But I'm still here, and I still own every brick, every recipe, every morning spent kneading dough before the sun rose." I pointed toward the exit. "And anyone who doesn't respect that knows where the door is." No one moved. Whitney was already gone, but her silence lingered. And for once, it did more damage than her words ever could. 2 days later, I changed the locks. June 5th, The locksmith was a wiry young man named Curtis, barely 20, sweating through his collar and trying not to look impressed. "You the owner, ma'am?" "Yes," I said. "The only one." It took him less than an hour to remove every cylinder, replace every code. The door made a satisfying click when it latched, cleaner, tighter, like it finally knew who it belonged to. Rosa stood beside me, arms crossed, watching the bakery we built seal itself off from the woman who tried to gut it. "I updated the staff pin too," she said, handing me a note card. "Only the ones who stayed loyal get it." I nodded. "Anyone complain?" "Nope. One of the girls said it feels better now. Lighter." It did. Even the smell inside was different. Less perfume, more cinnamon. I stood behind the counter and opened the small safe under the register. My old keychain was still inside, the one Whitney snapped when she tried to wrestle control from my hand in that back office all those weeks ago. The crack was still there, clean and vicious. I picked it up, looked at it a second, then walked to the front door. Outside, the sidewalk was hot, sticky with summer. I placed her copy of the old key on the cement, just laid it down like a useless offering. Then I walked back inside, locked the door behind me with the new key, and turned the sign in the window, under Original Management, black and white. No emojis, no frilly font. I didn't need branding. I had history. The new LLC paperwork was framed on the office wall before sunset, not because I needed the proof anymore, but because the next time someone tried to call me a figurehead, I wanted them to read it while they looked me in the eyes. Rosa handed me a cupcake that afternoon. One candle. No words. I lit it anyway, because that day wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. It was about reclamation. One brick, one signature, one breath at a time. Whitney tried to save face online, posted vague stories about, quote, misogyny in family businesses, and older generations fearing change. Nobody bought it. Vendors cut her off. Clients unfollowed. The rebranded LLC was suspended after Randall filed a claim for fraud. She tried to pitch a wellness brand a month later. It fizzled after launch week. She'd burned every bridge, then tried to walk back across them barefoot. Matt never apologized. He moved into a rental across town, taking space. I let him. He hasn't been back to the bakery once. Fine. I no longer bake for people who think silence is neutral. The community, though, they came back. Older customers brought flowers. Rosa hired 2 assistants to keep up. Local press did a small feature, The Comeback of Parker's Bakery. I didn't pose for the camera. I let the cinnamon rolls do the talking. I never pressed charges. Whitney lost what mattered most to her anyway: image, control, and access. You don't need prison bars to punish a person like that. Just silence. She walked away with nothing, and I walked back into everything. Not because I fought loud, but because I knew what was mine, and I refused to give it up quietly. Thank you for listening to the end. If something didn't sit right with you, let me know in the comments. And if you liked it, share the story and hit subscribe. More's coming.